Yesterday, we get the Shams bomb that the Minnesota Timberwolves have signed Jonathan Kuminga to a 2-year, $13 million deal. And if you ask me, great business by the Timberwolves there, right? I think they're going to have a very fearsome starting five. I already thought they were going to be dangerous and be a top 3 team in the West. Yes, top 3. Now I feel even more so that way, right? Like, good for them. But that also got me thinking, hey, now virtually every big name is off the free agency board except for one. So can the Mavericks pull off one last offseason bit of magic? That's what we're going to talk about today. Let's do this.
This is Your Mavs, a Dallas Mavericks podcast where all are welcome, but y'all better behave.
All right, before we dive into the content of the day, as usual, just a quick commercial. Guys, we are at 564 subscribers to this channel as I hit record today. That is so exciting to me. I don't think at this point we're going to hit the 750 subscriber goal for the month of August. That's okay. I'm not upset about it. Again, I have said it over and over on this show. This is like kind of the worst time of the NBA offseason, but we're almost out of it. Like, I'm doing everything I can to keep the content interesting and evergreen and all that jazz. But yeah, if you're hanging out, right, I've seen a lot of Spurs fans in the comment section lately, and it got me thinking, guys, if you're a Mavs fan and you've been a subscriber of this channel, or you're a Mavs fan and you haven't hit subscribe yet, right now you're being outdone by your Spurs fans, like, in a big way. So let's get the comments and conversations going again. Again, I'm trying my very, very best to keep things interesting and relevant for you guys. But yeah, I don't think we're going to hit our 750 subscriber goal, but that's okay. I'm not discouraged, and I'm still going to keep asking you to hit subscribe if you're vibing with this channel, you like the content. If you don't, that's okay. But I think this is a community where everybody can respectfully discuss basketball, especially the Mavs, right? But yeah, in today's episode, we're talking a little bit more like in general NBA stuff that's going on. So let's get to it. Yeah, I already talked about the Jonathan Kuminga signing. I already talked about how I feel like Minnesota is a very dangerous team. Go ahead and argue with me about it in the comment section. If you don't think that they're going to be a top 3 seed, tell me why, and tell me where you have them seeded and who's ahead of them, right? Obviously, the Spurs and the Thunder, right? But something else that was talked about yesterday, particularly on this show, was how good it feels to be a Mavs fan right now, and that we have had a great offseason through the draft, free agency, trades, revamping our coaching staff, revamping our front office. Today we got a little update that the assistant athletic trainer is no longer part of the Mavericks organization. That makes sense because the main athletic trainer was let go a couple months ago. So yeah, it looks like we're revamping our medical training staff, which I think Mavs fans are going to be very, very happy to hear. I don't have any concrete reporting on what we're looking at or who's going to fill that chair, but anyway, it feels really good to be a Mavs fan because of the new front office regime that we have going. Again, Masai Ujiri, Mike Schmitz, and friends, right? We've crushed this offseason. I feel like this offseason in general has been very, very interesting. Of course, whenever July 1st rolls around, we're post-draft. You know, even some trades happen on that night, but it wasn't even like anything like blockbuster or big, if I remember correctly. But this offseason has kind of popped off in general. There's been some big things that have happened. Probably most notably, LeBron James goes and signs with the Philadelphia 76ers. So one by one, a lot of the big names on the free agency list have been checked off. And yesterday, another big one, Jonathan Kuminga, was checked off. And this year, I guess this was, they technically got business done earlier than they did this time last year. Remember, if there was the ongoing negotiation about whether or not he was going to accept the qualifying offer with Golden State and then, you know, roll the dice on himself the next. That's behind us. And I actually think this was a good signing for Minnesota. They need a 4. I don't know that he's going to be a defensive 4. Maybe Jaden McDaniels is going to have to fill that role. But anyway, there's one name that is not off the board yet, and I'm really curious if this is somebody that is on the Mavs radar. And what I'm talking about right now is Jalen Duren. You're like, really, Ethan? That's the path you want to go down? Yeah. Like, literally, there's nobody else left unless you count Bruce Brown. We are not probably in the business of signing Bruce Brown to this team. I don't really see that would be a fit for our roster, right? But on top of what I just said, yesterday on the DLLS Mavs podcast, Mark Stein, National NBA Insider, said he doesn't get the sense that the Mavericks are done making moves yet, right? there's no concrete evidence or anything like that, of that nature, but just kind of the vibe that he's getting talking to executives across the league. Mavs are going to be opportunistic. The Mavs are going to find themselves in the middle of conversations, like, as a for instance, if the New Orleans Pelicans pick up the phone and call Masai Ujiri and say, hey, look, we've got this $32 million expiring deal on our books in Jordan Poole. Can we have a conversation around that? And I think those are the kinds of conversations the Mavericks are going to insert themselves into, even if they're not solicited in that regard. But at the same time, whenever I hear the word opportunistic, I also think about, like, if there's an ongoing negotiation that isn't going well, right? Like, for instance, Jalen Duren and Detroit. Is that a situation where Dallas gets involved and says, hey, clearly you guys are not on the same page. Clearly, Jalen Duren, you're not going to get the big bag that you thought you were going to get from Detroit, especially after not doing very well in the playoffs last year. But we recognize that you are an all-NBA talent. You are literally a walking double-double. By the way, his career averages are 13.5 points a game, 10.3 rebounds a game. I think the Mavs could use a walking double-double. I think the Mavericks could use somebody that would be essentially functioning as a bully ball player. Yeah, I think that there's plenty of room for that on our roster right now. And Jalen Duren is young. He's very talented. The only, I guess, knock against him at this point is just what we saw from him this past playoff run. Okay? I don't need to belabor that point. I don't need to get deep in the weeds to tell you that the numbers weren't good, right? Especially compared to his regular season numbers, where he was averaging 19.5 points a game and close to 11 rebounds a game. Anyway, that's a situation where I could see our front office looking to be opportunistic and not necessarily make a move that would make the Mavericks a worse team, right? Like that's what I meant whenever I was talking about like a situation like an expiring contract for Jordan Poole or like Jimmy Butler or any of those other guys. I don't see us making a move like that and then immediately making our roster worse, right? That's just my opinion. You can tell me to shove it. I don't care. But like this situation that's been brewing between Detroit and Jalen Duren is a situation that I'd be more interested in than kind of that other camp. So, I got to thinking, what would it take to work a sign and trade with Detroit? And so far, kind of like what I talked about earlier in the offseason whenever I was trying to work some fake trades with OKC, but they were a second apron team at that time. It was like impossible to work out a two-team trade, just straight up Mavs and Thunder dealing with each other. I had a lot of trouble in that same situation for the Detroit Pistons, where like money-wise, like if Jalen Duren stands his ground and says, hey, I need anywhere from $33 to $40 million a year, first and foremost, that is wild, right? Like that is a tough pill to swallow if you're the one offering and paying that contract. But if he's standing his ground saying like that's what I need in order to be happy and to play the way that I know how to play, well, we've got some salary that can match that, right? We really do. So, in a nutshell, what we could do, right? Please don't hate me. Like I'm not saying that I want to trade PJ Washington. I've even kind of backed down a little bit from saying that I want to trade Daniel Gafford. But in PJ Washington's case, he's going to be making $19 million this next year. That is healthy salary to start putting together an offer. And we all know, right? Even after waiving Klay Thompson or buying out his contract, we still have 7 wings on our roster. So PJ Washington is in a crowded rotation that is, I guess, technically a wing. So that's the PJ Washington side of it. But then there's the Daniel Gafford side of it, where virtually, I don't know that there are many things that Jalen Duren is going to do a lot better than Daniel Gafford, except for rebound, right? Jalen Duren doesn't really have a bag offensively. He just plays bully ball. He's strong, he's big, and he knows how to make it happen in the paint. Daniel Gafford has made his living catching lobs and offensive putbacks or whatever. Comparing those two players side by side, Daniel Gafford's going to be owed about $18 million this year, so PJ plus Daniel Gafford is around $37 million. You see where I'm going with this? But the question then becomes, do we see Jalen Duren as a good fit on this roster? The only thing that I can kind of wrap my mind around to say for sure I like this part of it is instead of having a rotation at the 5 being Derek Lively, who's very injury prone. Daniel Gafford, who was injury prone last year, but even whenever he is healthy, although he's impactful, he's not an all-NBA, all-star type of player like Jalen Duren. So I see a 5 rotation of Jalen Duren starting and then Derek Lively coming off the bench. That makes me feel very good, right? Starting lineup of Kyrie Irving, Max Christie, Cooper Flagg, Morez Johnson Jr. Yeah, again, I'm sticking to my guns on that. Mo, let's start day one. I think Dusty May knows how to push the right buttons to get the most out of Morez. Whatever, you know what I'm saying. But then, to round off our starting 5 with Jalen Duren, all NBA player, I think that is a very, very good starting lineup. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that is a better starting lineup than what Minnesota has put together. It's not a better starting lineup than what San Antonio or OKC or, frankly, the Philadelphia 76ers. All these teams that have made a bunch of moves, yeah, they're still better than the Mavericks are, and that's fine, right? I don't think that we're trying to compete for a title next season. But if we go and we take a flyer on a guy like Jalen Duren, I say flyer as if it's a risky move. It's really the price tag, right, that becomes a little bit of a risk. Because, again, if you build all of your franchise around a guy who is a regular season player and then you've kind of put together a successful season and then you get to the postseason and he disappears, well, that's where the risk comes in for someone like Jalen Duren. But to cover over that kind of risk, Derek Lively, if healthy, is a playoff riser, right? So you see where I'm going with this. I'm kind of digging at the bottom of the barrel here, trying to find some sort of angle or some sort of path for the Mavs to get something done that wouldn't make us a worse team, that would actually make us a little bit better. You're not even going to try to put any sort of energy into the conversation saying that Daniel Gafford is better than Jalen Duren. I know you're not going to do that. I know you're not going to say that Jalen Duren is better than, I know you're not going to say PJ Washington is better than Jalen Duren. I know you're not going to tell me that those two players combined is better than Jalen Duren. So the thing is, it's just how much of this drama, this ongoing back and forth negotiation for a contract extension, like how much of that is on him, right? Jalen Duren being a punk saying like, no, that's not enough, I need more. How much of it is actually Detroit saying, well, I would love to give you more, but you have to show me more, right? I don't really know, right? Nobody has a full pulse on what those conversations are like, except that it's not going well. And so if push comes to shove, Jalen Duren's just going to accept the qualifying offer and then become an unrestricted free agent next season. So Detroit might have a little bit of pressure on them to make some sort of move in a sign-and trade type of scenario, whether it's with Dallas or another team that might be looking for a big. But I wouldn't say that Dallas is looking for a big, but if we improved that position, again, we're swapping Jalen Duren for Daniel Gafford. We're taking a body out of that wing rotation that is already crowded. I see nothing but positives out of that. The problem is, and this is where I'm going to need your help, whether you are a Mavs fan or a Detroit Pistons fan, NBA fan in general, help me make a 3-team trade to make this work where Jalen Duren becomes a Maverick and those two players that I just discussed, PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, are being sent out. I need your help to make that happen. I'm not good with the 3-team trade scenarios. I've tried it, and I'm just like, I feel like I strike out every time, so I don't know if there's something that I'm missing about how those negotiations work. I don't know. So I need your help. But again, rewinding this offseason, all of the big names are gone, right? I could start naming them. You might fall asleep as I'm naming off these players. But even this week, the Benedict Mathurin signing, 2 years, $16 million, also a great value for him. It's kind of wild for me, and you can tell me your thoughts on this. Should Benedict Mathurin be making more than Jonathan Kuminga? I don't know that Mathurin is a better player. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, some of the bigger names that I guess had been attached to the Mavericks at one point or another. Jonathan Kuminga, I guess you could rewind to last season whenever those conversations were happening, but we're over that. There was any sort of reporting that the Mavericks were going to go for Kuminga, but one by one, all of the bigger names have fallen off the board except for Jalen Duren. So that's got my ears perked up a little bit. I don't love Jalen Duren, but I think he would be an improvement to this roster. He's obviously way younger than either of those two players that we'd be sending out in this hypothetical scenario that I haven't figured out how to make it legal yet. So, I don't know, guys. I'm just spitballing here. I think he could be a wonderful Dallas Maverick, and if we had both Jalen Duren and Derek Lively, that is probably the most fearsome center rotation in the NBA. And then if you get past those two guys, it's not like you're going to have an easy time with Moussa Cisse as our third stringer, right? Like he's flying all over the place and he is an aggressive machine. Okay, so I don't know. I don't see a ton of holes on our roster right now, other than the ones that we've talked about before: the point of attack defense and another creative on-ball guy. Jalen Duren doesn't check either of those boxes. You know what? I don't think we need to have a perfect off-season where we literally fill all of our gaps. But we've done a wonderful job of improving our roster, getting younger, getting cheaper, having more flexibility for the future. And a sign and trade for Jalen Duren wouldn't necessarily, boost our flexibility for the future, because that's a very expensive contract that we would likely be taking on. But it is a young core piece that could be next to Cooper Flagg and Sergio De La Reyna and all those other young guys that we brought in. That could be a really interesting and exciting core. So that's where I'm at. Again, I could not make the trades legal in the Spotrac app. I failed at that. But again, I want to hear from you. I need your help. If you're even remotely interested in this path for the Mavericks to bring in Jalen Duren in a sign-in trade, tell me who you're getting rid of. If it's not PJ or Gafford or whatever, just sound off in the comment section. Let's try and make something happen here, because if Stein says he gets the sense that we're not done yet, we're probably not done yet. We don't have to make any moves because our roster is in compliance at this point, but nobody's going to sit here and say our roster is perfect and that we've got no improvements that we can make. So that's where my head's at. Where is your head at? I need to hear all about it in the comment section. Guys, again, I'm going to try and keep things interesting and relevant. I'm going to try and keep staying on the consistent recording every day. It's just getting harder and harder and harder to come up with stuff to talk about. So if you have something that's burning, a burning topic at the top of your mind, please give me that feedback in the comment section. I want to make sure your cup is getting filled up if you're coming to hang out here for 15, 20 minutes a day. So, guys, that is all I have for you. I'm going to ask you to be good, and as always, party on.